Hi everyone, my name is Jason Erb and I'm the AP European History instructor here at Carlisle High School. I'd like to tell you a little bit about our course this evening. So let me just get right into the overview. We're basically going to start around the Middle Ages and work our way up through modern day, or at least as close to modern day as we can. We definitely want to get through the World Wars and Cold War, and generally, depending on time, we'll see how far we do progress. But when we look at the topics that we're going to cover things such as the Renaissance, the rise of new monarchs, we'll get into the Reformation, and eventually the religious wars that plagued Europe. And from there you can see that we work our way through some of the other major periods in European history, including the Enlightenment, the French Revolution, the Industrial Revolution, the development of the Congress system, and the rise of nationalism. As I mentioned then, we try to finish up with the World Wars and Cold Wars and reserve the final unit for what we'll call Europe today, which is always dependent upon time. That being said, we certainly want to make sure that we cover all of these core concepts in as much detail as we can, seeing that we are ultimately trying to prepare students here for the AP test, which I'll speak more about in a second. So if I can back up here to the required materials, a lot of these items are suggestions just to help students stay organized, because we do use a number of materials, and seeing that we're using different materials, it's very helpful to be able to align the various topics. So for example, one of the items that I recommend here are a number of sticky notes or tab dividers, if you will, which they're welcome to use in their textbooks. We use two key textbooks. One is a history of the modern world, and the other is a history of Western society. And even though they're covering a lot of the same topics, obviously they're occurring on different pages and different parts throughout the book. So oftentimes it's helpful if students can either color code or come up with an organization system there to provide themselves with easy access as they're working on various units and the accompanying projects or assignments that go along with those units. Also, I think it's useful to have certainly a binder, as I will be giving them a number of handouts and supplemental materials. I also do have a provision for an electronic notebook, which I'll talk about a little later down, a little further down on the syllabus. But other than the notebook, index cards can be helpful for making flashcards. A pocket dictionary is not a terrible idea either, because inevitably students are going to come across some words that they're probably unfamiliar with, and that can certainly aid their understanding very quickly. So if I can jump down here to the assessment part real quickly and talk about how grades are going to be determined. We try to get a mix built into the course here. So letter A I have labeled as participation. This could be any number of activities. These could be individual assignments. They could be group assignments. Anything essentially that we're doing in class could be awarded points. And obviously we're looking for engagement there. And the degree of effort and accuracy that's been put forth on those activities. We will have quizzes from time to time. Some of those quizzes will be announced, some of them will not be. The reason for the unannounced quizzes is to try to keep students honest with their homework, because one thing that's very important is to keep pace with the readings, especially with the schedule we have now where we only meet every other day. So those unannounced quizzes are basically just checks on their assigned homework, and they'll occur intermittently. The announced quizzes, those will always have a study guide with them, as will any unit exams. That'll tell students exactly what they need to be able to do. Essay writing is another key component of our course here, so it will be evaluated because a lot of the AP test relies upon good writing skills, which we will take a look at and focus on throughout the course. Flashcards are something that I'll recommend students make periodically for some of our study guides. and I will grade some of those. Homework assignments, this will be varied. Some of them will be reading, some of them will be short response type items. In other instances, we may have other short videos and responses to write. But I am generally looking for accurate responses on most of the homework assignments because it's important to get some quality repetitions and start to retain the information for the AP test. Continuing on the theme of writing, I guess here for letter G, I have essays and document-based questions. Once again, this is to prepare students for the writing that's included on the AP exams. So what we'll generally do there is we will look together at the AP rubrics, try to get a good handle on what's expected, and then I'll utilize those in class when I do score similar type writings. We are supposed to have a midterm and final exam for the course. I know the last couple of years this has changed because of some scheduling issues and certainly some hybrid models that have gone into place. But as it stands, we typically have a midterm exam that counts as 15% of the student's total marking period grade in the second marking period, and likewise for the final exam in the fourth marking period, where it also counts as 15% of the fourth marking period grade. So everything that I do grade is given a point value, so it's very easy for students to figure out their grade. It's just their total points divided by the total possible. The grading system is standardized, so I just put a copy of that in here. This is consistent for all courses in the district. The absentee policy that I follow is this. Basically, if students are absent, I give them the number of days they were absent plus 1. So if they were absent for 3 days, they get 4 days, and so on and so forth. Now, if there's long extenuating absences, then certainly the students can just work with me and we will come up with arrangements to get this work made up. I do encourage students to make sure that all their work is done on time. So if it is late, notwithstanding absences, then it will be deducted at a rate of 25% per day. So better late than never, but obviously much better to try to get it in on time. You may have noticed already to this point that your son or daughter has been bringing home a number of books because we do have a variety of texts that we use. They have 2 that they keep in their possession, and the 2 that they keep are a history of Western society and a history of the modern world. As I put in the notes down below here, we do have classroom copies of those, so it's not necessary for them to carry them back and forth every day, although it's entirely up to them. If they prefer to use their own personal book, they can certainly do that. Otherwise, I do have a few other texts mentioned on here, and I'll briefly talk about those. We have a culture and values text, which we will use periodically. It really focuses on a lot of the architectural and artistic achievements that align to the different periods throughout history, so we will take a look at that periodically, but it's not one that we'll use every day. We also have some primary source readers that we use from time to time, and as I mentioned earlier, I have a plethora of handouts and supplemental materials that I will also be providing for students throughout the course. So with that, a little bit about the AP exam. This is something that's optional. However, I highly recommend if students have, a B, they should definitely try to take the exam because they should fare very well. That's not to say that if you have below a B, students can't do very well. I've had students that certainly have course grades of below a B for the year, and they've done very well in the exam as well. It just depends, the amount of effort that's put forth here. Leading up to the AP exam, we will be having a number of review sessions after school and potentially online for students. So in addition to the course materials we're working on throughout the year, we'll also review a number of released AP exams. So the only issue with the released AP exams is For those, we do have to conduct sessions in the building because they're not allowed to leave the building, but I do have a plethora of additional materials that they will be able to take with them. And of course, in this day and age, we have a lot of nice electronic options as well for students to review and prepare for the AP exam. So the exact date of that will be set here in the near future, and students will be bringing home some literature on that once it is determined by the College Board and the district. In the meantime, I do have a website listed here that I encourage everybody to check out. It gives you details about the European History course and what's required by the College Board. As far as technology, we use the Microsoft Office 365 suite quite frequently, and this in fact is where students' school email is housed, and it's where they get access to all of the Microsoft programs. There's an account that's been purchased for each student in the district, and the direct address is www.carlisleschools.org/365. Of course, once students log in once, they can certainly bookmark this for easier access. But in particular, I'd like to point out the class notebook, which is part of the Office 365 suite. This is basically an electronic notebook, which is very useful for us. I mentioned earlier, certainly students should have a notebook, and it's certainly fine to have a hard, binder, hard copies of items, which I will provide periodically, but certainly there's items such as videos that I can't hand out to students physically. So this is where I house video clips. It's also where I keep master copies of the documents that I do hand out to them in class. In addition, there is a homework folder which will announce all of the upcoming assignments that they have, and generally on those pages I will attach the relevant materials as well. So if you're ever curious as to whether or not someone has homework, you can ask your son or daughter to pull up their homework folder there, and you can take a look. It'll tell you if there is anything coming due. And by coming due, I actually mean assignments that have already been assigned. Okay, so following a class period, then those assignments would be posted in the class notebook. If there's nothing, there'll simply be nothing in that folder. But otherwise, within the class folder, there's a lot of capabilities, and I'm not going to go over all of them now, but students can basically set up their own pages and personalize all of their course notes and handouts in there. And it's something that I can see in real time, and it's something I can also provide feedback to students on for particular assignments that we complete in, let's say, our journal folder in our class notebook. So I have some additional textbook links here that are helpful. I do want to point out that these are not one-line copies of the text. They're just supplemental links that go along with the textbook, but they can be helpful, so students can use them at their leisure there. If you have any questions on anything in this presentation or anything that I haven't covered, certainly feel free to contact me. My email is herbj@carlisleschools.org. It's probably the best way to contact me because the phones are turned off during the day. Students will sometimes want to contact me through Schoology Messenger, and that's okay. However, there tends to be a huge delay from when I receive those messages, so the school email is the best. And students should always use their school email when emailing me. Otherwise, a lot of it will get sent to my spam folder. So otherwise, I'll let you take a look at the remainder of the syllabus here. Just talks about some expectations, talks about the mission and vision statements of the Social Studies Department, and just notes that, we are kind of in a state of change right now, so there may be some items on here that need to be revised, and if that's the case, I'll certainly send out a notice regarding that. But otherwise, appreciate your time at looking at this. If you have any questions, please let me know, and I'll try to get back to you as soon as possible. All right, well, take care. and we're looking forward to a great year. Thanks, everyone.